Hey, everybody, just a little update on this podcast before you listen. This was filmed during the week at Barcelona when Nadal lost to De Minaur. He did beat him in Madrid and got to the round of 16 before losing. So hopefully that's a good sign for the French Open. But I hope you enjoy this podcast. Thanks. Hey, everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Strand Tennis Center podcast, filled with tips, advice, tennis, not tennis, just life advice too, whatever you need. Like it on YouTube, share it on the podcast as well. Thank you.
All right, I'm ready, George. Welcome to the Strand Tennis Center podcast. It was a little busy week in tennis. This is a little topical one today, Georgie. We're in the clay court season. They're in Madrid. Both the ATP and the WTA are in Madrid. The most popular tournaments are when they play together. They're always saying that, you know, men, what this debate, we talked about this a while ago, that men, there shouldn't be equal pay because men just play longer for the slams. They play 5 sets, they're out there longer, they should just get paid more money because they're just out there longer. It has nothing to do with sex or anything like that. But, you know, when they put these tournaments together, they make so much more money, and it's not just 2 times because there's men and women there. It's like 4 or 5 times. It's crazy. So they're in Madrid. It's the clay court season. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things that happened last week or this week. Number one, Nadal lost again. He lost second round in Barcelona, and he kind of said was like he lost the first set to, oh, my God, I should know. Oh, my God, Australian kid. But 7-5, and then he lost the second set 6-1 because that was necessary. I just kind of gave it away. I guess he's been having this hip problem, and I guess he didn't want to push it, but so he's testing himself out and see how it felt. And I guess he lost the first set and just bagged it. So he's going to play in Madrid. We'll see. I mean, I have a feeling, I mean, he hasn't been able to play all year. It just seems like, I don't know what he's trying to do anymore. Like we talked about this before. I don't know what Nadal's trying to do. The guy's won 22 slams. He did this event in Las Vegas with Alcaraz before Indian Wells, and they got tons of money, big money. I think with George, he got like $1 million, but then he was giving lessons. You could get a lesson from Nadal for like $100,000 for like a half an hour. It was insane. So he made a bunch of money and did that, but he did the exhibition with Alcaraz, and they kind of played a set, and they played 2 sets, played a match, and you could tell he couldn't even push off his hip. And I think he maybe didn't want to push it, but it just seems like, what's the point anymore? Like, you have a kid, and again, it's bad for me to say because I've never been that kind of athlete. I've never been number one in the world, playing in front of thousands of people and having that juice and having that feeling. It's probably hard to say no to. And maybe he's got some contractual things that he's got to end up. There's a lot of people that retire, but they have to finish out their contracts, their playing contracts. So like David Ferrer had to play in Australia 1 more year. A lot of these things you continue to because you want to finish out your contract. But to me, he's got so much money, like just bag the rest. Like, but again, I don't want to show empathy because the guy, it's been his whole life for so long. It's been everything to him. So I have a feeling, because the French Open has been his baby. He's won 11, I think, 10 or 11. It's going to be hard for him to, if he doesn't perform well. He said this is going to be his last year, but I think if he loses in the first round or the second round of the French Open, I have a feeling he's not going to play anymore. Like, what's the point? This is his tournament. This is the tournament he's won. So the Nadal update is, I have a feeling he's going to retire after the French Open, but that's just me. Second thing is Djokovic with his coach. Ivanisevic, he got rid of his coach. And he's had another, what's his name, so I get the name right. Terrible pronouncing names. I'm sure I'll pronounce it wrong. I have it here. Let me get the name. But he's been working with him for a few weeks. Let's see. Nadal Zimacek. He's been working with him, his former Serbia Davis Cup captain. He's working for a couple of weeks. But he's thinking of not having a coach at all. So to have a coach or not to have a coach, that's a big issue. I think as a young player, sure, you need to have a coach. But Djokovic at this point is 36. I think he knows what he's doing out there. Maybe he doesn't need a coach. Now, anybody can respond in the comments. Do you think he doesn't want a coach because he's tired of giving people a cut of this and he feels like they're not doing enough? Is it money? because he does make a lot of money, and whatever the rate is, sometimes you'll get, I don't know. What's the percentage? Between 5 and 10%? Do you really want to give up that money for saying, hey, I'm going to win anyways? Or do you feel like you just don't need somebody in your ear? I guess at 36 and playing all these tournaments, you may not. But you can go back and forth. A lot of these tennis players get very needy, right? They need somebody around. They need to bounce things off of people. They need to feel like they're being heard, and they need to feel like somebody's there for them. Now, you can have somebody that's not the coach and do that, but I don't know. I probably feel like Djokovic shouldn't have a coach because what is he going to play? Another 2 or 3 years? I think no. And the last thing is Gabriela Muguruza, Spanish tennis player who's one in the world, has retired. She was 30, and that's another question. First, right off the bat, it's hard. Two things. You look at her. She's 30. These day and age, you can play a lot longer. And you're like, boy, you retired pretty young. Before, 20 years ago, you would have said, oh, boy, she retired late. But tennis, there's really no off season, and that's the problem. I think these players, and they're playing later than ever. You would never see Federer play till 40, Nadal's 37, Djokovic 36. It just didn't happen anymore. These players started even earlier, 15, 16. They'd be done, like Borg retired at 25, 26. They're not going to stop. I mean, they're going to stop playing 27, 28, 26. That was the usual time. Now it's a lot later. But still, I think players would play even longer in general if there was more of an off season. I mean, she's probably started playing when she was 15, 17, played for 15 years, and that's a full career. And you're still very young. And you're still very young physically. The problem with the tennis tour is if you're a good player, and she won 2 slams, she won a Wimbledon and a French Open, and you're number one in the world, that means you're playing the ATP, you're playing the WTA finals, you're playing all the way to the end of November. You only have like 4 weeks off. Like most team sports, definitely more than 4 weeks off. I mean, the NBA ends somewhere around May and June, and then you start in September again. I mean, you got the whole summer off. I mean, same. You got months. But you only get probably 4 solid weeks because then you got to get back in shape, right? So say you're done at the end of November, then you've got December, January, you got till Christmas. You probably got maybe a month. But then you've got to go. Then the next tournament is in Australia. So if you live in Europe or you live in the United States, you got to acclimatize. You got to get over there New Year's Day because you need 2 or 3 weeks to acclimatize. The Australian Open's in the middle of January. You play a couple tune-up tournaments. So it's really hard on your body. We interviewed Mariam Bolfiver, who is 320 in the world, and she says everybody's injured. You always have nagging injuries. It's really hard to take, I guess, at some point. So you're trying to, I guess you look at somebody else's shoes and you're like, hey, oh my God, you were number one in the world. You travel all over the world. You make all this money. How can you quit? But you don't see it from their end. The travel sucks. It's really difficult. You're changing time zones. It's really a brutal thing. Then you got to play a match. So then you got to be your best. I mean, I went over to Indian Wells out in Palm Springs in March. Alcaraz won the tournament, then he's got to play the next week right away. I mean, he had a good 4 or 5 days, but then you got to get your level up again the next week, and then there's the next week. It just doesn't really stop. So, I don't know. I mean, in general, usually when men and McEnroe got married, usually when men get married, they don't play as well, and when women get married, they usually play a little better, it seems like. I don't know. That may just be anecdotal data. I don't have any real data on that, but it seems to me that women tend to get married. Like Angie Kerber came back, she had a baby, and she seems to be doing well. I have a feeling that that's just my observation. So maybe she has a relationship and she's feeling comfortable doing that. But other than that, there's not really a bunch of huge topics in regards to tennis. Really, the best players to me right now, the best player this year has been Sinner. He's just outplayed everybody. I mean, Alcaraz beat him in Indian Wells, and that was the strangest match because I was like, how is Alcaraz doing this? He was giving him all this pace. He lost the first set. Then he gave him nothing, and Sinner couldn't handle it. All this weird dead spin, nothing to it. Took all the air out of the match and beat him. And that was I think that was the first match Sinner had lost in the year. What's up, CJ? Why don't you say hello to everybody, buddy?
Hello, podcast.
No, CJ, come here. We got to show you the beard. Come here. This beard is getting so thick. Come here, real quick, as they're picking up balls. I mean, that beard is like a carpet. CJ, come here. Come on, wait 1 second. CJ. Just looking at the camera. Look at this thing. Look at this thing.
Hey, guys.
It's getting thick.
And I'm growing it out. I'm going to have like a little ponytail soon. I'm going to have a little ponytail. It's just a new style. I'm bringing it back. It's no longer here. It's the beard that's come back. Fear the beard, that's what they said.
Fear of the beard. But what did you think about Nadal losing again? Do you think he should retire? We asked about this. You're talking real quick.
I think Nadal should retire. I mean, I think that I don't want him to go out on a bad term. Of course, I would love him to win. He's my favorite player. But it's unfortunate that his body can't hold up anymore. It's just, I would hate for him to go out and play in the French and just lose first round and be done. I think he needs to.
Is that what you think he's going to lose in the first round?
Unfortunately, yes. I would love to see him win. I was there when he won last, or 2 years ago I was there. But I think that he needs to stop. I think it's going to kill him to go out and play and just lose right away. It's going to be so sad.
And why don't you tell me that story? Get closer. Tell me that story about 2 years ago to the French Open, all the way to France, and how long were you at the French Open?
I went to the French Open, and we were there for probably about, maybe I would say, an hour and a half total. And we left, and instead I went to the Louis Vuitton Memorial. It was awesome.
Memorial or the museum?
Museum.
Memorial. Louis Vuitton is dead. Good.
Yeah, it was all right.
No, it wasn't, CJ. An hour and a half ago to the French Open, you sit down, you got to go?
Not enough.
Not enough time for me. So that's where your 80-20 principle. But anyways, that was a different show. But yes, I think our point was where CJ interrupted me. I forgot where my point was. We were talking about Muguruza. We were talking about time. We're talking about players. Oh, my God, George, I can't remember, but that's okay. What? Oh, Sinner. Thank you, George. Thank you for reminding me. So Sinner has been the best player of the year so far. I mean, Djokovic is still number one based on points. Alcaraz obviously has won Indian Wells, but hasn't played as many events. Women's tour is just all over the place. I have trouble following it. There's so many different players. I mean, Swiatek is still the best player. I find her super impressive, and she's just the best all-around player to me. But we'll see how the French Open goes. We'll do a podcast after the French, and we'll figure out I'd be curious to who everybody thinks is going to win. Tsitsipas just won Monte Carlo. He got to the finals of Barcelona. Casper Ruud beat him. Ruud has been in the finals the last 2 years, I think. So you figure it's going to be those clay court guys. Tsitsipas, he loves the clay. So you figure Tsitsipas, Ruud, Alcaraz, Sinner. Those would be the four. And Djokovic, obviously, the fifth. So, but Nadal is amazing. He's not in the consideration, I don't think. I just don't think he is. But that's a little topical podcast today. Everybody, have a good day. The answers and the actions. Get out there and do something, whatever it is, even if it's something small. Even you walk around the block, do it. And the good thing about that, George, is the great thing I learned, after you eat, just walk around, do some air push-ups, do some air squats, 20 of them. It will start to burn calories and will start to help your metabolism. It's amazing how you will not gain weight if you eat a meal and just walk around the block or do 20 air squats. It'll burn the calories. Very strange little ending to that, but hopefully I'm healthy. Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. Hope you like the podcast. Please share it with your friends, anybody that you know, anybody that's into tennis, anybody that's into bettering themselves. Share it.